Welcome back to another episode of the Midtown Madness podcast featuring Zach Miller and my co-host Peter Hale. Pete, how we doing?
I'm doing all right, Zach. I'm hanging in there. How about you, man?
I'm in the stages of grief, I think.
Yeah.
Which is sad to say about a college basketball team. That's really kind of pathetic. But no, I'm dealing. I'm really putting my faith in the women's basketball program, I think, right now. I think that's where I think Billiken fans can find a lot of solace. I think this team has a chance to make a run in their tournament. They're fun to root for in a good group of women. And I think the Billiken fans need to watch them. And I'll just say it, before we get into it, 7:00 on Friday is when they play. So I believe that'll be on ESPN+. Let's get into the men's basketball. It's not going to be fun, but it could be cathartic, I think, in a way, therapeutic to kind of hash this whole situation out. First round, or their first game in the A10 tournament, they come away with an 86-72 win at UMass. Kind of the basic points of the game. Mitchell got 30 points for UMass. Perkins was the closer in this game. But the real surprise, I think, in this game was Yuri Collins.
Collins was awesome. Yeah, he was his usual self, distributing the ball, moving it around. Maybe had a couple more turnovers than we're used to, but I didn't hate any of the turnovers. He was trying to make big plays, and they kind of got away from him. But he was way more assertive scoring the ball and drawing fouls too, going 5 for 7 from the free throw line. So finishing with 17 points is not something you see very often out of Yuri.
No, it's not. You mentioned getting to the free throw line, and I think that was kind of the theme of the night for the Billikens. Usually Billiken fans are lamenting the foul disparity, or, the fouls being called against them and not the other team. But Billikens got to the line 27 times, and I'll be damned if they didn't make 22 of them, shooting 81.5% from the free throw line. That might be a record under Travis Ford.
It sure felt like it. Really, you have Javante Perkins to thank for it.
Yeah.
A lot of people said that's the quietest 25 points they'd ever seen, and it makes sense because he attempted 3 3-pointers and didn't hit any of them. But he was 11 of 25, really. It's those free throws. Line would have been to beat us, but really now, with the exception of French, everybody's been pretty effective from the free throw line this season, and you can't make it a team strategy to just kind of hack us.
Yeah, I talked with the guys over at 3-Bid League right after the game, and they kind of thought they felt like they kind of thought the Billikens had it wrapped up pretty early. I was nervous the whole game up until about 2 minutes ago. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I think, and I have to go back and look and do the research, it feels like so many of our games have been won or lost in that first 4 minutes till the first media timeout. It feels like every time we've lost, we've been down 6 or 8 or more in that span. But a lot of games we've won, we've just come out to a really hot start, and this was one of them. It just never felt like UMass was really going to threaten for it. Everybody was just playing so solid and smart in that first half. So to go into halftime, with 46 points and up 13, I couldn't imagine us losing the second half. So I think I was probably less nervous than you are. I really liked how we looked yesterday or in that game.
Yeah, I think I held my breath every time UMass took a 3-point shot after watching them in the first round.
Yeah, except the thing that was frustrating me about kind of the narrative around their 3-pointers is the announcers kept framing it as they were hot yesterday, they're not today, as if St. Joe's and SLU are equals defensively. The difference is UMass would carry the ball over half court and have multiple options wide open on the 3-point line every time. So they were getting wide open threes in rhythm against St. Joe's. Against SLU, they'd cross half court and they had guys all over them right away. So they were winding up with some looks from 3, but it was after, having to move the ball around for a while and fight for it. So it was a much different – they were shooting out of their half-court offense later in the shot clock and not able to kind of shoot in transition, and that made all the difference.
One person that stood out in this game, and we talked a lot about him going into the tournament, but this felt like one of Fred Thatch's best games.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of kind of quiet games that, well, I don't know, maybe not that quiet for Fred, but yeah, he was super efficient. And here's yet another game where he has he hits a 3-pointer. He's like shooting with so much more confidence. He hit that one in the first half when we were kind of starting to run away with it. But yeah, I mean, he gave us another great game, 9 and 5 in 27 minutes. He got in a little bit of foul trouble, but otherwise, I love what Fred brought to this one.
One of the interesting things looking at Fred Thatch's game by game splits, individual game splits, is that when he scores, he really is a seriously efficient scorer. He rarely, if he makes shots, he's rarely shooting under like 40%. I mean, he had games where he does score a couple points, but and shoots about 25%. But for the most part, he's very efficient.
That's a big turnaround too for him because earlier in his career at SLU, his offensive numbers weren't good at all. His shooting percentage across the line was just not great. So to see him this season, especially as the season has progressed, his numbers have gone way up, and his shot selection's been outstanding. He's not trying to do too much. He just kind of takes what's given to him.
This was such a good game all around for this team. I don't think anybody had a bad game. I guess you could really call Martin Linson's game maybe bad for fouling out in 11 minutes. But really, I think that was his goal. I think he just succeeded at what he was supposed to do.
He's almost like an enforcer in hockey. Like he comes in and like will hack some guys and kind of do what he needs to do. It's almost like a Cheney player.
Yes. I was just thinking about that incident.
Yeah. Hey, Martin, go knock that guy into the second row. And he's not quite doing that. I think he's just got a little bit to learn with his defensive discipline. But I actually loved his first half because he came in and he drew a bunch of fouls. And again, he went to the free throw line. He was 5 for 6 on the game, and then hit both of his shots too. So yeah, he fouled out, but those were 11 really good minutes, except for maybe this. I guess he did have a few turnovers too.
Yeah. But I mean, you go 5 of 6 from the free throw line. This game was all about the Billikens getting to the free throw line. It was unbelievable. There was clearly something that Ford saw in that first game that he thought he could exploit and successfully did.
Well, one of the things that was interesting in this one is it was clear from the start that Mitchell was afraid of getting in foul trouble. So anytime they took it at Mitchell, he just backed up all the way until he was like basically under the rim. And he only looked comfortable defending when he had help. So anytime Hassan got the ball in the post, Mitchell would be doubling him with someone else. He'd have a help side defender come over, and they double Haas. But French was smart in this game, especially, I mean, really in the first half, because he didn't try and force anything. He could have, tried to back it in and kind of do that thing where he slowly, and we'll get into this in the Bonaventure game, where he kind of slowly, methodically tries to give you a little kind of half hook shot from a few feet away. And he didn't try that at all in the first half. Instead, he passed out of the post and was hitting open shooters. Or just moving the ball around. So it was so disciplined, and it was beautiful to watch. So while Mitch and everything in transition too, Mitchell was just kind of laying off, which I think a few times kind of hung his other defenders out to dry.
Do you think that's a problem, giving up 30 points to Mitchell on the offensive end?
I mean, not really. Look, Mitchell was. You could kind of I guess I just made the argument that he was kind of selfish defensively.
Yeah.
It seemed like he knew that this wasn't their game, and he was just going to kind of get his. I don't know. I mean, he got to the free throw line and hit all of his free throws. I don't think he particularly no, he didn't grab any offensive rebounds. So it's not like he was really fighting down there. I mean, he just kind of took his where he got them, and hit a couple of 3-pointers. Look, he's a great player. He's got a chance to be an NBA player. If he scores 30 on you and nobody else really has a good game, that's fine.
Yeah.
So no, that doesn't really bother me. Oh, and look, a lot of that, we just talked about it earlier. It came because Linson was putting him on the free throw line. So,
Right.
so
And he
it's
had
all
a
right.
bit of a height advantage against Linson as well.
Yeah. And he took a couple wide open threes. So I'm not, he already scores almost 20 points a game. And if he wants to go off in a game where they're not hitting threes, that's fine.
Speaking of wide open threes, I think I personally, and I think you do too. I think we owe Yuri Collins a huge thank you for making us look like a couple of geniuses on the last podcast. That we knew he could hit him. It was just a matter of just him taking them, and I don't think he was ever like hesitant to take him. I just think he thought he had a better option. So
yeah, it was all about opportunity, and he looked so much better in this game than he had in the past few games. His ankles kind of looked like they were back.
Yeah, this game really gave Billiken fans a lot of hope, and unfortunately, we had to move on to the next day, and the next day was Saturday. The Billikens took on the Bonnies, 71-53 loss. This game, I think I knew this game was over when the Billikens got blocked 5 times in a row on like the third possession of the game, and I basically called it a night.
It was so hard to watch in the first half. I just talked about how disciplined and smart French was in that UMass game. Didn't force anything. Maybe in the second half he tried to, Mitchell being a younger player and French knowing half the guys on that UMass team really well from high school and AAU ball. Maybe he felt like he had a thing or two to prove after that, but all of that kind of went away in this game. And I don't know how many times you have to get blocked inside of 5 feet by Osuni before you realize, like, he's got a 7'8" wingspan. And it's not just how long he is. He has unbelievable timing and instincts. He's just a natural shot blocker. And yet we kept forcing things. And it wasn't just French. It was Linson and Bell. All 3 bigs were blocked at least once by him in the first half. And then we were, Goodwin or Thatcher, whoever else, people were trying to kind of take it in the lane. I don't know why we weren't moving the ball like we were against UMass.
Or even in that first game against Bonaventure.
Yeah. And like looking to get a little more done on the perimeter and letting guys like Perkins and Jimerson kind of operate on the perimeter and in the mid range, moving the ball around. Instead, we let their, that defense where they try and slow you down. They don't press, but they slow you down when you kind of get close to half court, and they want to fall into that, really aggressive, pressure defense that they play, and slow the pace of the game. They completely controlled it, and they fooled us somehow into taking contested shots in the lane over and over and over. And I don't know how many times it had to happen before we tried something else, which we never really did. I mean, what did you see in this one? What else did Bonaventure do to just kind of have our number?
I mean, I guess they changed their strategy from the first game. Clearly, 9 blocks as a team, 7 for Oshunahi himself, which is.
Well, he did have 5 in the first game, so
yeah. I mean,
it's not like his presence was a surprise.
Right. I don't really know what they did. Like, I'm never good at, just picking out what they did to stop us, because I can never tell if it's a bad shooting night or defense. Unfortunately, I fall into that trap a lot. I mean, they didn't shoot well. From 3.
No, I didn't think our defense was horrible necessarily. Yeah. It was just so bad on the offensive end.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a defensive game, and they controlled the tempo, they controlled the tenor, and completely forced us into playing, just taking bad shots over and over and over. This is one where a lot of people, in addition to just saying we're trying the same things over and over and not working, we were only down 8 at half. I think a lot of people, because that first half felt so bad, kind of ignored the fact that Bonaventure didn't light it on fire in the first half. Like they were not Um, they were not just killing us. So we go in down 8, and it's kind of like we just have to come out and get a couple stops, hit a couple shots, and this is a close game.
Mhm.
And it was the complete opposite. The only thing that I saw coming out of halftime that was different, obviously, Thatch was in for Bell, but we played, as far as I could detect, no different strategy whatsoever.
Right.
Because within the first couple possessions, French is blocked at the rim yet again. The offense is just completely stuck in the mud.
Yeah, I don't, it's one of those things. I really liked how the bully ball was getting us the last few wins, but it felt like Ford wanted to try to keep it rolling with that and not try to revert to uh, the finesse ball that we saw that beat Bonaventure the first time at Chaffetz.
Yeah, I mean, so after the first media timeout, we saw we switched to a zone, which did not work at all, because Attaway all of a sudden got really hot,
Mm-hmm.
and he picked it apart, whether he was scoring or just kind of moving the ball to somebody else. Completely just made that zone pointless. And then we started to put a little pressure on him at times in the second half, but by the time we did that, it kind of felt like too little, too late. We did wind up with a few turnovers out of the press and got a little production out of that. But look, I mean, when you're doing that and it's like now the margin is high teens, or they had it up to 20 plus at a couple points. So it just kind of felt like why now?
Mm-hmm.
That seems like something maybe to do and to energize them coming out of halftime or something. So I don't know what happened at halftime. I don't know what was said. I just saw more of the same in the second half, and it was unfortunate because we know from a month ago this is a team that SLU can beat them by 11.
Do you think they? I mean, do you think you press the entire game against a team like Bonaventure? I mean, they have 5 guys.
No, and then pressing it. Look, that's not been our game the whole season.
Right.
We're not and even though we've got more depth than they do, Bonaventure being literally last in Division One in bench minutes and bench points. Like they play their starting 5 and that's it. So you think like, yeah, wear them down, make them work for it, but that's not our game, and you don't necessarily want to have to shave Goodwin and Collins and Perkins minutes way down,
Yeah.
because you're running them in a press the whole game. So I don't think that's necessarily the answer. I think the problem was really more at the other end. Like I said, I think we
Yeah.
actually defended okay in this game.
I'd have to agree with you there. I do.
I think the other thing we haven't touched on yet is rebounding.
Oh, we were getting there. I was
Yeah.
saving. No, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely dominated on the boards. It was the complete opposite of the UMass game. It
Right.
was, I mean, we had 27 rebounds to Bonaventure's 35.
Yeah.
They had 10 offensive rebounds. We had 9, not too terrible there, but the defensive glass is really where we got wiped out in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of that has to do with the fact that we weren't shooting well, but really neither were they. I honestly have the 10 offensive rebounds is without having it in front of me, it doesn't feel like we've really let anyone else have double-digit offensive rebounds this season against us. And especially when a guy like Lofton, who's the smallest guy on the court, maybe Yuri's size, but a little, not even as strong as Yuri, winds up with 10 rebounds. How does that happen? So, um, rebounding is it's been what SLU wins on
Mm-hmm.
all year. So to see them get beaten so decisively in that area was just confounding. I don't know what happened there. I don't question how bad everybody wanted to win this game. They all know the stakes. They know what's on the line. So I don't know how you lose the rebounding by that margin.
Yeah, it's really it's baffling. It I just I don't know. I'm it's a bummer. I'm obviously I take any loss hard, but
Yeah. I mean, do you think there were any? Is there any truth to Ford's possible excuses for this loss in his post-game comments?
I mean, I think there's always an advantage to play in an arena right before and be comfortable with the arena. I honestly don't understand why they chose two different arenas to hold the tournament. We've seen it across the other leagues. They're holding them in one arena. I don't see why we couldn't have found an arena sizable enough to hold it. It's I think he's just a guy that's frustrated. There is a little bit of petulance to it. I'll give you that. But you know, I mean, you go and sit down in front of this mic, and they're asking you all these questions. They want answers, and I mean, sometimes you just don't. And I guess you go with we haven't played at this arena yet this year, so
Right, and they have. I
yeah.
mean,
I think the whole home court thing is just dumb. I think it's insane. I think the A10 royally screwed up this tournament.
yeah, and I know they switched a lot of things on the fly, but you got to feel like, for one, giving VCU two straight home games is maybe not ideal for anyone else in the league. I know the league wants its top seeds to do well, but at the same time, it's a little bit puzzling, and it does seem like a punishment for everyone else. In a game like this, if I'm Travis Ford, I don't know if that's really the card I play in the post-game conference to go, hey, we lost by 18 and it was never close.
Yeah.
But maybe they were more comfortable with the gym. It's just like these guys have all played so much basketball by now. I don't know if that's a great excuse. And this is also a gym that we almost beat VCU in there a few weeks ago. So it's not like we're seeing a venue for the first time. There are arenas in this league that we see once every 2 years. Like if you don't have a home and home with somebody, in a 14-team league, you're only going to play there every other year. So, it's one thing if we haven't played at George Mason's gym for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden we've got to go win a conference tournament game there. But I don't know. I don't really think that had a big effect on this one.
Yeah, and of course it led to some Twitter drama that I wasn't involved in for once.
Thankfully.
I know. Basically, Adrian Wojnarowski took and this made Barstool Sports as well, which cool. It's the first time we've made Barstool since the unveiling of the two-tone Billiken. So that's an accomplishment. Congratulations. Yeah, Woj basically said, Travis Ford's post-game comment was, I think that's an advantage they played here last night, but it is what it is. And A10 Talk tweeted and editorialized, he's now mentioned numerous times the fact that SLU played at the Robbins Center yesterday, while St. Bonaventure played here at the Siegel Center. And Woj responded to A10 Talk. Unfortunately, Twitter is taking hours to load. He says, right, and the Bonnies have always had a tremendous advantage in resources, budget, and facilities and location over SLU. Now we're running it up. He said, now we're running it up with quarterfinal gym location in Richmond. I imagine it would have been worth plus 19 points in the final spread, man. Or do better, man. Or go get the number 1 seed. Try that. And then basically a Billiken fan went after Woj, and it didn't get any prettier. What do you think of like Woj jumping in here and kind of taking a little shot at Ford?
Well, for one, it reminded me that he was a Bonaventure guy. I'm so used to him as an NBA, the NBA gossip, the deal gossip dude who's, great at that, that I completely forgot he was a Bonaventure fan. I actually think for the most part, he is right. I mean, like if Ford wants to say, like if we lose to VCU at VCU in the conference tournament and VCU was never supposed to play there in the first place, that's one thing. Then Ford has a valid complaint, but it wasn't VCU, it was Bonaventure. Right. And even though they had played there the night before, He's right. That's not an 18-point swing. That is just not. So it's one small factor, but this is a game where they outcoached us, they outplayed us, they outprepared us. We had seen them a month earlier, beating them by 11. They adjusted and we didn't. And if we did adjust, we did it the wrong direction. So I think for the most part, Woj is right. The only comment of his that I take issue with is he did kind of imply that a Bonaventure degree was worth more than a SLU degree. And I don't think that's true. But I have been up there for a game. I think it would have been.
I remember you going.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was 2013 when I drove up there. And
you drove? Did you not take sled dogs?
Only for the last part.
The last leg.
You can drive to the casino that's like a half hour west of there, and then you have to take a drunken bus.
Yes.
15 minutes, and then once that gets pulled over, you have to take sled dogs the rest of it.
Yes.
But he's not wrong. They have a gym that's like flat walls on the end, and even though it seats like 6,000 people, it's on a campus that is in a really small town. It's nice. When I went there was like a foot of snow. There's like some mountains and forests and a river in the back. It's a nice place. I can see why they put monasteries there 100 years ago or whenever they first showed up.
Because you couldn't escape.
But it's tough to recruit too. Like they said in the broadcast, Schmidt gets a lot of guys who are under recruited. He gets a lot of international players. He's always had players from Canada and fifth year prep school players who might be late bloomers, but they do not really have any of those advantages, and he does make the most of it. So those are all valid points. But if I've got two resumes on my desk with a Bonaventure and a SLU diploma, I don't automatically think that the Bonaventure guys got more value.
Are you hiring for welding? That's the X factor there.
Yeah, there's a good callback, a good reference.
So let's move on here to what could be. There's nothing obviously in stone. It's kind of a lot of Twitter hearsay and rumor and innuendo. But there's a potential. There's a time frame where the Billikens can add another game. Maybe try to hang on to whatever life their season has, and potentially grab a last minute bid. What do you think the prospects are for adding a game?
Ford wants to. He said he wants to. We obviously need one. I mean, what we really need is a quad one road win. So I guess
I'll shout out. This actually kind of goes into one of the questions we got on Twitter. Will Sutton 314 or Will Sut 314. I liked Chapley Media's discussion about the quality opponent SLU would need to schedule this week, possibly Drake. So go ahead. I wanted to.
I actually have. Did Drake lose today?
Yes, they got hammered by Loyola.
Okay, I haven't looked at scores yet. I've been, driving and whatnot today. But so okay, yeah. So there's Drake probably needs a game. I don't know. I mean, what's Drake now? 22-5 or 23-5, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that's going to get screwed by the whole didn't play strength of schedule, didn't play anybody kind of argument. A lot of us had much better schedules than what we wound up with this season through no fault of anyone's. It's just kind of how it shook out. So I think Drake and SLU and a lot of other programs were victimized by that, certainly. Maybe Drake wants it. We would have to go there probably. I don't know if them coming to St. Louis does anything for us if we beat them there. I don't know. I mean, there can't. I guess what I'm saying is, how many quad one teams are there? Isn't 30 the cutoff for that?
Yeah, I think around there.
So how many of those teams think that they're not already in the tournament?
Or if they've already, finished up their season and they want to stay fresh. I haven't even gotten into the schedules of like the power conferences or.
Yeah, I guess I would have to just kind of go through team by team and look at who it makes sense for. And I haven't had time to do that since we lost. But it's to me, just kind of the concept of it is how many quad one teams are sitting there going, maybe we could go ahead and give ourselves one more trap game before Selection Sunday, and we'll throw in a little potential COVID exposure while we're at it, because every additional game you play, especially to a non-conference team, you're introducing a whole new set of people into your gym. So so you're just introducing more variables, and nobody wants the least bit of risk before the tournament in that regard, because you don't want to be one of the teams who's like all of a sudden having to cancel and be replaced in the NCAA tournament, because it's going on without anybody.
Okay, so there's an interesting spin. Billikens right now sitting at a lot of bracketologists first four out. They've already talked about alternate teams. Could the Billikens stand pat and pray for a COVID bid?
Yeah, I think once the NCAA made that clear a couple weeks ago, kind of how that was going to work. I think we tweeted it out from our account, like kind of like, hey, here's another path if things don't work out in the A10 tournament. And I don't know if we'd be that first team sitting out, but we'd be one. There's 68 teams playing.
There's a lot. That's a lot of people.
Right. So I would absolutely be ready, have my bags packed and ready to go to Indianapolis, which SLU can do in the inside of a day. They don't have to fly. They're within the drive radius per the tournament rules this year. So that's certainly possible. It almost makes me hesitate. I don't know how fast you have to accept an NIT bid, but I would almost rather sit around and see what happens to the NCAA tournament teams first.
How do you feel about taking an NIT bid?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the NIT is shrunk down this year. I know it's a 16-team thing, and I haven't quite looked at what that picture might look like, but I would have to think SLU's in the picture for that, even if it's a smaller format this year.
I mean, do you want to see the Billikens in the NIT? Like, I know there is a section of kind of people that are NCAA or bust, or I just want to kind of wash their hands of this whole insane season.
I'd rather be an NCAA replacement team. I don't know. Okay. Maybe they don't get to you, but it's like the guys who were not all-star picks, but someone got hurt before the all-star game, so they play in the all-star game. They still get to put on their resume, I was an all-star. You know what I mean? Like, this would be us making the NCAA tournament in a weird way, in a weird year, but you never know.
Hey, I'm with you. I think you try to get in the NCAA tournament however you can. We went through that first question. We kind of tied that in. Second question is from Bills by 40, which unfortunately they didn't live up to that name. Does Goodwin stay if we don't make the tournament? If yes, are we better next year with Okoro over Haas and fifth-year Goodwin and Okoro? I don't know if I read that totally correctly. I think I butchered it. But basically Goodwin stays, not Haas. We have Goodwin and Okoro. Are we a better team?
Wow, yeah, because we already know Perkins is coming back.
Right.
And we don't, because of how we've handled recruiting this year, we don't have anybody lined up yet for those other spots. But I think they want to get something done in the transfer market, if not a late signing out of the 2021 class. I have a hard time saying we're a better team without French. Okoro is a much better matchup for guys like Mitchell and Osuni that we just saw. I mean, because he's so much taller and longer than, I mean, I guess he's only 2 or 3 inches taller.
That makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Because how many times this year has Haas just been, at 6'7", playing against opposing fives in D1, you're giving up size almost every night. Even though he's got a strength advantage and he's got great length and he's a good shot blocker. Okoro, I think people are really going to like Okoro, especially he's had a full year to kind of get healthy, get settled. I have very high hopes for what he's going to do in his couple of seasons here. So that said, Goodwin said he was not coming back. He did his senior night, but I think the reason people ask is because the most recent time that he was asked about it, he was kind of ambiguous in his answer about like, let's see what happens. Um, so I, the reason that this question is so hard is because we don't know who we're going to spend these scholarships on.
Right. I
Um,
think you'll definitely see. I know for a fact that the staff wants to stay old.
yeah,
They want vets. I think they're trying to bridge the classes to Larry Hughes too.
yeah.
That's when they want to go young again, is with Larry Hughes too.
This class, it was. We talked about this before, but it was clear that they made that push for Jordan Nesbitt, who's a St. Louis kid, who's like a top 75 player, and he committed to Memphis over us in Illinois. But it was very clear that they wanted him and thought that he was going to be ready to go in a year where Goodwin left. And even though he's a different type of player than Goodwin, he's bigger and longer and everything, but he does play kind of anywhere from a 1 to a 3, and he could have been that guy to step in and play right away. He's that good. There's no one else who's available in this class whose SLU is like in with or anything like that, who's like ready to go. So yeah, they're looking at transfers.
Yeah,
Um,
I know Chapley has kind of ruled out Cameron Fletcher as a potential target. I don't think there's.
oh really?
Yeah, I don't. I think he gets the impression that it's there's just not a lot of interest there either way. Like, I just
Okay.
don't think.
I mean, he's a local kid, so naturally his name's going
Yeah,
to come up. There's some other guys who we've recruited before who I could see leaving where they are now. But that's a huge set of guys. I guess my short answer for now would just be no. I don't think we're better, just because losing Goodwin and French
mm-hmm.
and just replacing him with Okoro is all we have on paper right
Right.
now. So even though I think Okoro could probably have a better season next year than French did this year, that doesn't answer who makes up Goodwin's production. We have a lot of guys waiting in the wings. Thatch has kind of given us a preview of what he does with some more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You want guys like Hargrove to take a step. You want Jimerson to regain his form. And you want to see guys like Strickland.
Forgot about Strickland because he
Yeah,
hasn't even been in the arena.
Strickland is a guy that the staff thinks has all conference talent, and I don't think they're pulling our leg. So I think he's a guy who goes from showing up in late game situations where we're up by a lot to a guy who's now playing somewhere in the teens, giving us some actual minutes at every game. So we do have guys waiting in the wings who I'm kind of excited about, but Goodwin is just such a unique player. That's a lot of production to replace.
Did you happen to see Okoro's Instagram story today?
I
You probably
didn't.
didn't. He
No.
was in the gym working, and the dude is ripped,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
shredded.
Mm-hmm.
So that got me hyped for his athletic ability and what like he could possibly do. He knocked down a nice little mid-range off the glass jumper that was pretty sweet. And
He's I know part of his focus is building out his offensive skill set, because he's a very good defensive player. He's a good rebounder. His numbers don't jump off the page at Oregon, but I think he's going to be better than people realize.
yeah, I think people don't realize what we have
Right.
in Okoro come waiting, and I think and I don't want to say that people are going to forget French, because people are never going to forget Hassan French and Jordan
No,
Goodwin.
he's awesome.
But I think Okoro is going to quickly make people kind of realize that maybe French didn't have everything we thought he had. I guess.
Right. And we still have Winston and we still have Bell.
Yeah.
Bell is, I think he's one of these 4-year bigs that just like they're
like a Remakin.
Yeah, historically, I think of a guy like going back 20 years. I think of a guy like Chris Heinrich, who showed up. I mean, seriously though.
No, I love it. I love it.
He was huge and like slow, and just you looked at this and you're like, who is this stiff? But then by his senior year, it was like, this is a really productive guy who's given us great minutes, and he's a matchup problem for teams. And I think Bell was better out of the gate than he was, and has the potential to be better long term. But that I just point to him just to go, big guys who are that big just take time. So we just need Bell to keep progressing. Linson is going to be back next year, and we know what he does. So our front court, I'm not worried about at all.
If we can get a nice, real preseason, man, this team could still be good. It's so frustrating to think, Bell was slowed down by probably being locked up for, in quarantine going into, in the spring, or I'm sorry, like over the summer into the
Yeah,
fall.
yeah, yeah.
So
He was hurt too.
yeah, and maybe wasn't able, of course. And
Yeah, he lost like a month and a half.
yeah, so it really bums me out to see that, he kind of has lost. This almost seems like a lost year for him, but he has played well when he gets a chance. But
Yeah,
it bums me out.
yeah.
Uh, let's see. What do you think? Do you think we get in the tournament? Point blank. Point blank.
So
No
okay,
bullshit.
so yeah, so if you listen to the Wiz, Billikens.com, we've got a guy who loves to. He's got I can't even imagine what his spreadsheets look like. He's calling us a coin toss after that game. He's going into the game. He said if we lost, we had a 52% chance to make it, but we got blown out, so it's more like 50-50. And had we won, we would have been almost 70% likely to make it. I still think 50 is generous. I still think 50 is generous. I would put us more like at a 1 in 3 chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but here's like 10 other things that could happen in the conference tournaments over the next week. Like there are certain teams that if they kind of lose early, maybe we sort of wind up looking better when all of these other teams who have an opportunity to kind of seal up their resume now don't. But I just kind of.
If Michigan State gets in and we don't, it's going to be the second time they've broken my heart in the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of those kind of traditional power teams who are iffy. I mean, a lot of I think Duke and Kentucky are probably both out at this point. But you've got teams like Syracuse, Michigan. Like there are some that kind of still have a chance.
Like Mizzou is sliding down a hill, and they're
Yeah.
still gonna make it.
Yeah, probably. But I don't know. I just think we need too many other things to happen in order to make it. I mean, is that kind of where you are too?
Yeah. I mean, we did have a 1.5% chance to get the double bye. So, I mean, and I didn't yank the pump off the hose off the pump when I drove away from it on Saturday. So luck has kind of been on my side. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't. Unfortunately, I think we're in the first 4 out. And we gotta pray to to St. Louis to get that COVID spot. So
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if that's a bad place to be. I mean, it's late enough in the year now where it feels like, the cancellations, the COVID cancellations have kind of gone down to a trickle. So I don't know how many more teams are really going to be susceptible to a true shutdown, a true like tournament ouster. But man, being one of the first couple potential teams to be able to grab a spot if somebody does get bounced, I don't know. You never know. And the other weird thing here is it could be a 1 seed, it could be a 16 seed.
right.
So there is the opportunity for some real chaos to be thrown into, which is, I don't know. It's a fun thought.
Yeah, let's move on to the women's basketball team. There's nothing really to talk about, so I'll just throw out the update. We talked about it on the A10 preview show. If you missed it, the Billikens got the 3 seed. They will not play until Friday on ESPN Plus at, I believe they're playing this one at the Siegel Center all the way through. Yeah, it is at the Siegel Center. Billikens got the 3 seed. George Washington and George Mason, the 11 and 14 game, will play on Wednesday at 4 p.m. The winner will get Richmond, the 6 seed, at 8 p.m. on Thursday. And then the Billikens will take on the winner of that game Friday. So stay tuned on that one. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to preview it, which kind of sucks. But, yeah, women's basketball looking to make their first NCAA tournament in program history.
Yeah, you have to, after beating Dayton this season, you kind of have to feel a little bit better about their chances in this tournament, and the fact that Fordham's women's team has just not played a lot, and they've had so many setbacks. Being on the same side of the bracket as us, I kind of feel like there's a huge opportunity here. Richmond isn't the ideal first game to get here because that was a defensive grinder of a game. So you could probably expect another one of those. But who knows? Maybe one of the Georgias will upset them, and we'll get an easier.
I'll tell you, it ain't gonna be Mason.
That's true. That's true. Okay, maybe George Washington. Yeah, they're truly bad. Yeah. They're truly bad.
I don't know how they're that bad because honestly, for the last 4 years, they've had this little blonde guard. I can't remember her name right now, but she terrorized the Billikens for 4 straight years, and we would just always somehow drop a game to Mason because she would score like 20 points.
It's amazing to me when a team goes winless, and it's like even Fordham's men's team can put together a couple wins a year, so yeah, it's not going to be them, but anyway, I think the opportunity is why it's more open this season than it's been in a while, and would love to see us get to that Dayton final. Yes. And have another shot at them to get to the tournament.
Speaking of terrorizing, jump back to a fun Twitter encounter from early in the day on Saturday. And I got to say that I think Tyler Relf has no idea what the hell is going on A10 Twitter, because I when I was on SB Unfurled and Friends, I challenged him to I just was like, I want to fight Tyler Relfs because I'm still mad about 08. And I think he got on Twitter on that morning and was like, what in the world is going on? He had no idea. But yeah, I finally
don't get yourself in trouble.
I know. It's totally a Twitter bit. It's totally a Twitter and podcast bit, except for maybe 2%. 2% of me is still really upset about that game. But I thought it was funny that I finally got to spill my guts to him that I'm very angry about that game still. But he's making his way with his ball handling drills that I think he's running a clinic or doing videotapes or something.
Yeah,
so good for him though.
Tyler Relf Basketball Academy.
Yeah, hey. Mr. Basketball New York.
There apparently.
You go. So I've been told. We'll move on to soccer. The men's soccer, not much better. All I can really say about this is that it doesn't count. I don't think so.
I mean, I guess for tournament consideration.
Yeah. I mean, the Billikens dropped a 1-0 the game to Columbia College of Missouri. They improved to 9-2 in their NAIA, in their season. Billikens dropped 4-2. NAIA is the Wild West. Half these guys are probably 25. I really don't know what else to say about this one. It wasn't good. Just seemed like Columbia came to play and the Billikens didn't.
Yeah, so this one, seeing this on the schedule is like confusing because there's Columbia University, that's like the Ivy League school that everybody knows.
The same colors.
And then there's Columbia College in Chicago, which I've had some friends go to in the past, and really isn't a factor in sports. I forget that this school, Columbia College in Columbia, Missouri, actually exists.
I'd never heard of it.
Because there are so many other Columbia colleges, but it's actually, when I looked it up to just kind of verify what it was, it's like 10,000 students. It's bigger than you would think.
It's kind of like the what's the Holy Cross that's next to Notre Dame? It's kind of like kind of like that to Mizzou.
Yeah, except it's a private school.
Right.
It's like a private religious school. But anyway, yeah, it's you're right. NAIA, you just don't know what it is. I mean, there are some NAIA like baseball teams, for example, that are awesome. So I imagine this was kind of a tough one to scout. That this is obviously a game that they should win. But I think they were probably just surprised by what they saw.
When anybody asks me about NAIA, I have to remind myself and them that I had an offer to play NAIA tennis out of high school, and then NAIA soccer as like just get half scholarship just to sit on the bench as a backup goalie. Like that's how absurd the whole, like they just toss around scholarships. Like they don't, there's no real rules
Yeah.
on like how many scholarships or, whether you played pro ball or anywhere, like you can go back to school and play. It's kind
Yeah.
of a wild, like I said, the Wild West. But the Billikens did get back in the win column against a Division I opponent today. They played Lipscomb at home. They won 2-0. John Klein opened up, or no, I'm sorry. It was Simon Betcher opened up the scoring on a rebound off a John Klein shot. He just tapped it home. And then on a penalty kick, it was Kip Keller who stepped up and put the Billikens away for good. And they come away with a 2-0 win. So good to see them get back in the win column.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming off that Columbia game, you want to make sure that everything's in order before you get to your conference season. But yeah, it's great to see some now familiar names in the scoring column, and Becker had like four or five shots in this one, so it's starting to get really active up front there.
I'm excited. Their conference season is now upon us in the soccer world. And the Billikens get Dayton on Saturday at Herman Stadium. I'm kind of excited. I think I'm going to matriculate down that way and catch this game.
What are their? How many people are they letting in now?
It's like 300.
Okay.
I actually made my way down there for the women's game. That's a perfect segue to the women's game on Saturday against Oklahoma State, which they ended up losing. But the highlight of the day, or I guess the low light, is they had a bit of a drama with the COVID situation with OSU. From my understanding, a player on Oklahoma State woke up with symptoms, did not report those symptoms till they got to the field, which I'd like to judge her for, but I can't. Because I never know what I would do in that situation. I mean, being a 20-year-old kid, whatever. But got to the field. They learned about it. She did a rapid test. She passed the rapid test. It was negative. But SLU Medical wanted her to go to SLU Hospital to get a PCR test. And I guess that came back negative as well. So the game was postponed I got there about 10 minutes early. 10 minutes before kickoff, and all the equipment was strung out all over the field still from warm-ups. I'm like, it didn't even dawn on me that COVID could be a reason for this.
Right.
But I had to obviously jet back because I had something I had to do at 2:30. So I actually didn't get to stay for the game. So drove 30 minutes and then had to drive 30 minutes back. But Billikens lose to Oklahoma State in extra time on a penalty kick. It was a legit penalty. Don't know what else to say about this one. It's a bummer. It was a great game. Each team had their share of possession and control of the game, but Billikens just couldn't come away.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's a good team. They're ranked. They're actually ranked ahead of SLU. So this was not a game that they necessarily would have been expected to win, but a big opportunity. So to take them all the way to the 98th minute scoreless, obviously it's painful to get to give up a PK at that point. But Oklahoma State's a very good team. They've got a few top drawer soccer, top 100 players. They've got some wins over ranked teams. They played a fall season and have just kind of started up. I think this was only their second game of the spring season. Some teams kind of did their schedules in reverse based on how their conferences were handling COVID. So yeah, no shame in this one. It was a close game and a hard fought loss.
We're gonna switch up our normal kind of route we take through the athletic department because I really want to talk some field hockey. Because I'm really happy for this program and the players that have been in the program and that have come and taken a chance with Zoe Adkins. Because the Billikens are 3-2, and I don't know if I've ever said that in my life when it comes to field hockey. They dropped 2 really close games this week, unfortunately, to Miami of Ohio, who's a decent team. The first game was a true heartbreaker. Billikens led. I think they scored in like the 46th minute, and then gave up a goal on like the last play of the regulation, and then lost really quickly at OT. So the Billikens hung on as long as they could. The goalie for SLU is just outstanding. Her name is, I'm trying to find it. It's Kendall Underwood. She had 10 saves in this game, and she was under siege for almost the entire game. So congratulations to them on a start, even though they lost 2 in a row. The second game was a 2-0 loss. That one wasn't really in doubt. They went up 2-0 pretty quick, and Billikens couldn't recover. I'm anxious to see them go to Davidson because Davidson's more on their level. They travel there on the 13th, so I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, first road games too. I mean, they play their home games out in Sport.
Yeah, Maryland Heights, out by Hollywood Casino.
Yeah,
Centene,
right.
yeah.
So even their home games are not like home games. It's not like
Right.
they're playing on campus or anything. But yeah, they've got a couple of games here in North Carolina. They'll play Davidson and Appalachian State before they head back home to play VCU later in March. So yeah, it's interesting to see what they'll do. But it seems like this program finally has a pulse, and it's exciting.
Yeah, one of the here's a strange thing from this game, the second game of this series. The referee was Lauren Bruce. Now, I know most of our listeners don't follow field hockey, but that's the former coach of the Billikens.
That's an amazing little nugget there. I would not have caught that.
What? I mean, how many times in sport has a former coach reffed a game with their team? That's just wild.
That's humbling. It also shows what a small world this some sports can be.
Yeah, field hockey, volleyball, or both. All the local kind of scene in St. Louis for those kind of sports are just really tight knit and really really good. St. Louis has a really good field hockey kind of history for being the city. I mean, for being a Midwest town. It really does have some East Coast sensibilities in its prep school. Like Catholic grade schools, Catholic high schools, kind of very East Coast-ish type setup.
Yeah, now the challenge is just kind of getting that talent to stay home.
Yeah, and not going, and then bringing in the foreign imports that are they really do permeate field hockey.
Sure.
From Denmark and the Netherlands. Is that the same? No, Netherlands, Denmark, all that. Baseball and softball, really tough start to the season for both teams. Baseball started off the season 2-9. Since we last checked in on them, they dropped an 11-1 midweek game to SIUE. They dropped 2 out of 3 to Kansas over the weekend. They won the first game 8-1 and then dropped back-to-back 5-1 and 7-5. The second loss coming in 12 innings. Tough start for the men's baseball.
Yeah, the KU series, especially with that first win, it being an 8-1 win, you kind of think like, okay, maybe this is the the kind of inflection point where they can kind of turn the season around and get their confidence back. But they dropped the next one and then lost the rubber match in extra innings at home. So that's tough to see. But
Kansas hasn't been lighting the world on fire
no,
either. They're
no.
not exactly a power.
No, and then they've got a one-off against Mizzou coming up on Wednesday.
That could be.
It's at least at home, though.
Yes, it could be. That'll be something to keep an eye on. They'll take on. They have a weekend series after that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Western Illinois comes to town, and we will have a recap of that next week. Softball team also finding it difficult to get on the winning path. However, they did beat Northern Kentucky Sunday. They played at the Saluki Invitational. They lost to Creighton, Northern Kentucky, and Illinois Chicago in succession, 6-4, 6-5, and 4-3, and then picked up the 5-2 win today at 2:30. And I think they should be ending their final game of this tournament against Southern Illinois any minute now. And yes, 6-2 loss to a 14-0 SIU Carbondale team.
Yeah, so this shows you what a fine line a season can be, because they're now 1-7, and they've really, I mean, 6-2 to a very good team is their second biggest loss of the year. You know, they've really only been blown out once, and every other game's been close. It's just an incredibly frustrating season. And look, they've only played one home game. You know, they play this crazy Saluki Invitational, which has 5 games in 3 days. So maybe now you come back home and they've got a spring tournament this weekend, and then a bit of a home stretch after that. So they don't travel again until the last weekend of the month. And, you know, by then they're playing the conference schedule, and hopefully by then they've settled into a groove.
Yeah, it's tough to watch Billiken team struggle. But yeah, I think that's it's frustrating because I think the program in general, the athletic department has such a chance to be good at the sports that aren't necessarily the money makers. I think non-rev is a spot where the Billikens can excel.
The challenge is always going to be for a private school that, you know, some of those non-revenue sports, you've got not that many scholarships to go around to a whole roster. And so you've got to get pretty creative with, you know, financial aid and scholarships and things like that to fill out a team. So you've got to make those decisions about, do we want those kind of full scholarship talents at the top end of a roster and kind of just fill them in with, you know, more almost walk-on level players after that? Or do we want to kind of split up scholarships and get some more mid-tier players? So it's a huge challenge putting roster together in non-revenue sports. And that'll always be a challenge at a private school like SLU that's got expensive tuition.
One thing we didn't touch on is volleyball. They played Duquesne in kind of a back-to-back home and away situation. They beat Duquesne 3-0 at home, and then went on the road and dropped the first set. It was pretty close, but then just dominated the next 3 sets and finished off Duquesne 3-1 in that one. They will head to Kansas State on Sunday, and I mean, this will be their last kind of challenge before conference season really kicks into gear. So they're doing well, but you know, I think it's still the fact that this conference is really bad, and they're winning the games they should win, but not being competitive in games that they should be as well.
So VCU and Dayton are the 2 other best teams in conference, right? And that's who they've got left on the schedule.
Yeah. So this is going to be a weird finish for them.
Right. It's a huge opportunity.
Oh my God.
To
I didn't even realize this. They literally only have 5 more games.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right. And so they're playing the top end of the conference heading into the conference tournament, which is the first weekend of April. So yeah, opportunity, but I don't know. Like you said, we kind of know who this program is by now.
Yeah. They could end up, they could end up 11-7 overall, or 7-11 overall. Sorry. Um, and they could end up close to 500 in conference. Um, it'll be interesting. All these games, I'm sure, will be on ESPN Plus. I was really hoping that Davidson would have the field hockey game on ESPN Plus, so I could actually get a look at this team and see what the hell's going on over there. Because it's amazing that we're like literally talking field hockey. Like what?
Yeah.
But they've brought players in from Zoe Atkins's D2 team, and they're playing better.
Yeah.
So
it's been that kind of program. And the goalie you mentioned too is a freshman, so
I mean,
bright future.
Yeah, it has to be what tactics? Does it at this point? It kind of has to be.
I guess so.
Were they just rolling the ball out and say, "Go swing your sticks, ladies"?
Either that, or she has a second career as a motivational speaker.
And this keeper Glendale, Maryland, her bio doesn't really stand out. Like it doesn't shout like stud goalie, I guess, or doesn't, stud recruit. 4 letters in field hockey, all conference 17 through 19, all county second team 2019, all state second team 2019. Nothing really screams, All American or, anything like that, like you'd see in basketball. But good for this team, man. I'm going to definitely get out to one of their games before the end of this season because they deserve, Zoe Atkins deserves a ton of credit just for getting 3 wins.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's exciting to, like I said before, just to kind of see a pulse in this program, and all credit to her for what she's done so far. I think conference is now the really big test to really to get a gauge of how good they could be.
Well, I think that'll wrap us up for this episode. We'll keep it a little short. This is the first episode since the pilot we didn't have a guest because obviously we have no idea what we're going to do, like what the basketball team is going to do going forward. So anyway, thanks for listening. Before we sign off, Peter, do you have any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
No, I mean, well, yeah, I guess I do. Just pay attention to, the selection show, and you never know what's going to happen. I know we're both pessimistic, but anything can happen. There's a lot of basketball left to be played around the country, and anything can happen. And who knows, maybe we'll even get a weird midweek game here, even though I think not many teams have a reason to play us right now because it's a trap. So just we'll watch the selection show next Sunday and hope for the best.
Well, I guess I'll leave them with a quote from JP from Angels in the Outfield. It could happen. I'll pray for that. But thanks for listening. Find us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod. You find me at Zach Miller MMP, and Pete is there at Peter is a tweeter. That'll do it for us on this episode. Episode 5, technically 5, because we did the A10 special. So thanks again for listening, guys. It means the world, I think, to both of us that people care what we have to say about Billiken basketball. So again, thanks for listening, and go Bills.
Go Bills.